Hey everybody, it's Bram Duffee. Welcome back to class. We're talking about research, communication research today. And specifically, we'll get talking about mixed methods research. Mixed methods research is an important approach to understanding complex ideas through complex methods. So, mixed methods research is grounded in the belief that no single perspective can really capture the full truth of a phenomenon. Instead, by weaving together multiple viewpoints, we can gain a richer, more nuanced understanding. So let's start with why mixed methods are essential. Imagine a social scientist, an interpretive scholar, and a critical scholar all approaching the same issue. The social scientist might apply theories and collect data and test hypotheses using numbers and statistics. And then at the same time, the interpretive scholar is going to be seeking to understand the world by listening to stories and observing behaviors and kind of immersing themselves in the nuances of the human experience. And then the other one is the critical scholar. So the critical scholar is the person that would examine like text and speech to understand how things like power and privilege shape reality. So each of these three approaches provides a piece of a complex puzzle. And so if you employ mixed methods, we can bring these pieces together. And by doing that, we offer a comprehensive view of the issue at hand. And I think that it's important, like with all of the research methods that we talk about, we have to know that we are going to be figuring out the answer to a problem. And if mixed methods is the best way to do that, then I would certainly suggest working towards that. And let's say that one of these three or you have no knowledge about or no understanding about, what you would do is bring in another researcher to work with. And so this is the way that you end up, if you're not a specialist, but you're trying to study a topic, it's okay. That's how you end up bringing in other researchers, and that's how you end up having more names on a paper, right? Because it's just not something that is done alone in most cases. So, excuse me, let's define mixed methods. A key concept in mixed methods really is triangulation. And it's the collecting and analyzing data from different approaches, but triangulation is a way to confirm findings. So what we do is we compare different data sets to make this triangulation work. So, for example, if you have a quantitative survey and it reveals a trend, then interviews might provide the context behind those numbers. And so this process not just confirms the findings, but it also enriches your understanding of what's going on because it's going to highlight the agreements and the disparities so that there is a lot of times, for example, EMS1 is a group that does a major research project every year, and they ask me to talk about some of the nuanced aspects of the research findings. And so what happens is that they figure out, based on the survey, what it is that people are concerned about. So based on their concerns, we are able to dig deeper. So I have recently written an article for EMS1.com about the opioid epidemic and also about the homeless and psych epidemic. And so these kinds of topics, the only reason that we worked on them in a more qualitative way to dig down deeper is because we found out first, okay, this is a concerning number. And so in this way, we took one research study and it helped inform a second research study so that we could take the numbers and then dig deeper. But when we do mixed methods, we're talking about doing those things at the same time so that you would be taking into account when you create the study that you want to do both approaches. So there's nothing wrong with doing one thing and then doing another thing. It's just that one is going to always inform the other, and sometimes you might be in a position where you can work, like I said, as a group so that these kinds of things are even more possible. So when planning a mixed method study, it's important to consider just that whole scope. Is the research question too broad for a single method? Or, by embracing multiple methods, maybe we can enhance the depth of the investigation or the breadth of the investigation. For instance, one outcome of a study might be to look at the underlying reasons behind those statistical results. We also might do something like merge data sets to show where they converge or diverge. Ultimately, doing things like that promotes a meaningful understanding of the material. And altogether, planning has to involve these kinds of integration strategies. Because if we're doing a mixed methods approach, we're going to decide whether we're going to connect information or if we're going to limit information and what is going to inform what. So starting with the design of your study, I want you to consider the overall landscape of your research. So think about what you aim to discover and how different methods can illuminate various aspects of your question. So, for instance, a study on urban cycling safety, you might simultaneously gather numbers on accident frequency and stories from professional cyclists about their experiences. So this dual kind of approach helps paint a complete picture of the topic at hand. Another study, you might think about how you have a professional fighter, and that professional fighter does observe certain safety standards during their practice and during their matches. And so being able to look at numbers that gather information, you could do that from different aspects. So once you put together a study, we move to collecting the data. And so just imagine that you're a detective who is collecting clues. And it's really important to keep your data organized and manageable, and that way all the pieces fit together in a seamless way. And during this stage, when you're collecting data, you have to just really focus on maintaining consistency so that you are able to pull together insights. And as you gather your data, you begin to integrate the information. And so this is where you weave your findings into a cohesive kind of narrative. And it's like whether it's confirming trends across a data set or identifying discrepancies, this way of designing your study will guide you in seeking confirmation or to refute what's going on. And mixed methods research is just particularly valuable if you have a situation when neither qualitative or quantitative data alone can just fully answer your research question. And so because the question is usually set up so that you need both approaches, it has some advantages because the results are going to be more generalizable. The breadth of the quantitative findings can be now enhanced by that depth from the qualitative insights. And so on top of that, you now have some kind of contextualization, and that contextualization adds richness to your conclusions. And it all allows you to illustrate numbers with narratives. And this is where you get to have your credibility bolstered with the use of triangulation, right? Because different methods are able to validate your findings. So formulating your research question is really crucial. And we have to ensure that it directly addresses how these methods will work together. So if a single method suffices, then mixed methods might not be the right fit. Remember, it's not just about collecting both types of data. It's about integrating them into coherent kinds of conclusions. Mixed methods research also has challenges because it does demand a significant investment of time and resources. And that can take time when you have to collaborate, and especially when you are doing interdisciplinary kind of collaboration where you have to kind of learn a little bit about the other person's side as well. And so when you find common ground between diverse forms of data, this is the kind of thing that can be tricky, right? So you have different data, you have different fields, and you have diverse forms. So let's explore some common research designs within mixed methods. In a convergent parallel design, you collect quantitative and qualitative data at the same time, analyze them separately, and then compare the results. So, for example, if you're going to study fighter safety in Amsterdam, then you might involve accident reports for frequency of injury, and also interviewing professional fighters for the perceptions of their danger, right? Because then you have both there for a convergent parallel design. In an embedded design, though, both data types are gathered simultaneously, but one serves to support the other. So what if you conduct a quantitative study on complaints, and then you could embed the interviews to strengthen your argument? So in that kind of way, you would have qualitative insights acting to support as evidence. And so that would be like an embedded design kind of plan. An explanatory sequential design would be something that starts with quantitative data, followed by qualitative exploration to explain and kind of contextualize those findings. So, for example, if you analyze accident statistics, then it might reveal dangerous areas. And so if you are able to reveal dangerous areas, then it would prompt interviews with professional bicyclists maybe that would help you understand the reasons behind those kinds of patterns. So that would be the explanatory sequential design, because you're starting with the quantitative followed by the qualitative to help contextualize. The exploratory sequential design is something that begins with qualitative data to develop a hypothesis, and then you follow it with quantitative testing. So in this case, you might interview professional bicyclists about the problem areas that they would see, and that could lead to a statistical analysis to see if the perceptions match up with the accident data. So that would be like the exploratory sequential design, and that's the one that begins with a qualitative data, and then it's like, okay, is this something that we can reinforce or we can figure out with numbers? And so that's the pattern that helps that understand. And altogether, it's important to see that mixed methods research offers a comprehensive framework for understanding complex phenomena. By integrating quantitative and qualitative data, researchers can achieve a more nuanced and complete picture. This approach not only enriches our insights, but also bridges the gap between theory and practice, and this makes it an invaluable tool in contemporary research. And so, thank you for hanging out with me and joining me in our current exploration of mixed methods research.